Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into the ongoing protests in the UK, where demonstrators are rallying against the use of hotels for asylum seekers amidst plans to speed up the appeal process. The government aims to cut delays, reduce reliance on hotels, and introduce independent adjudicators to make the system more efficient. It's a heated debate about how best to manage immigration and public safety. Next up, Japan is making moves to streamline entry for its growing number of tourists with expanded immigration and customs checks at major airports like Fukuoka and Narita. The new joint kiosks will allow travelers to submit their info once, speeding up the process and easing congestion at busy terminals. With over 36 million visitors in 2024, Japan's making sure everyone gets through smoothly. Finally, in Florida, the controversial alligator Alcatraz detention center faces shutdown after legal challenges citing environmental and human rights concerns. Despite this, Governor Ron DeSantis has a backup plan, building a new deportation depot at a closed prison to keep up with the state's tough immigration policies. The debate over detention practices and environmental impact continues to heat up. Please continue to watch for more details. South China Morning Post reports that protests in the UK persist as citizens rally against the government's use of hotels to house asylum seekers, amidst plans to implement a fast-track appeal process. Demonstrators, some waving union flags and draping themselves in national symbols, gathered outside hotels in Birmingham and Canary Wharf, expressing their opposition to the current asylum system. The UK faces a record number of asylum applications, with over 111,000 claimants in a year, and a backlog of cases leading to prolonged stays in hotels. The government aims to overhaul the appeals process by appointing independent adjudicators to expedite decisions, addressing the lengthy delays, some exceeding a year, that keep failed asylum seekers in the system for years and cost taxpayers billions. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper emphasized that the existing chaos and delays are unacceptable and pledged reforms to restore order, reduce the backlog, and phase out the use of hotels for housing asylum seekers, building a more efficient and fair system. CNN highlights ongoing anti-migrant protests across Britain, where tensions flare over immigration policies and the use of hotels for asylum seekers. Demonstrators in cities like Epping, Bristol, and Birmingham waved British flags and held signs demanding an end to hotel housing and the boats crossing from Europe. The protests follow a court ruling in Epping that ordered the removal of asylum seekers from a hotel, which has become a focal point for anti-immigration sentiment. The government, under pressure from public concern and recent record-high asylum claims, announced plans to reform the asylum appeal process by creating an independent adjudicator body to reduce a backlog of over 106,000 cases, including more than 51,000 appeals waiting over a year. Politicians like Nigel Farage advocate for strict measures, including mass deportations and withdrawal from the European Convention on Human Rights, to curb migration. The government's reforms aim to accelerate decisions, phase out hotel housing, and restore control amid a climate of rising public anxiety about safety and national identity. The Independent reports on the recent detention of Iyad Mohammed Abwelhawa, the creator of the Trump Burger, by ICE, highlighting the complex intersection of immigration enforcement and political symbolism. Abwelhawa, a Jordanian citizen with a criminal history, including healthcare fraud, drug misbranding, assault, and intimidation, had overstayed his visa and defied deportation orders for 16 years. His arrest underscores the Trump administration's intensified focus on immigration law enforcement, especially targeting individuals with criminal backgrounds, regardless of their political affiliations or entrepreneurial ventures. Abwelhawa's story is further complicated by his health issues, which his attorneys claim are being neglected in custody, a claim DHS dismisses. His case echoes that of his former business partner, Roland Biani, who was also detained, both entangled in legal battles and facing deportation amid broader efforts to crack down on undocumented immigrants with criminal records, even as they maintain their political beliefs and business identities. Nikkei Asia discusses Japan's strategic efforts to streamline its immigration process amidst a surge in international visitors, with a focus on Fukuoka Airport. The country aims to reduce congestion and wait times by expanding the use of joint immigration and customs inspections at more airports, including Fukuoka, which is expected to adopt the new system by the end of 2025. This initiative involves installing joint kiosks that allow travelers to submit their information once, using biometric verification methods like facial recognition and fingerprint scans, thus simplifying and accelerating entry procedures. With over 36 million foreign visitors in 2024, the highest since before the pandemic, Japan's government hopes these measures will enhance convenience and promote tourism. Additionally, plans are underway to pre-screen short-term travelers before they arrive, further reducing delays and improving efficiency at Japan's busiest airports, reflecting a broader commitment to modernize its immigration infrastructure and handle the rising influx of global travelers. The Associated Press provides an inside look at ICE's aggressive expansion and modernization efforts as it scales up its deportation operations under the current U.S. administration. The agency is rapidly hiring new agents, aiming to add 10,000 officers by year's end, funded by a record-breaking $76.5 billion budget, with nearly $30 billion allocated for staffing. These new recruits undergo streamline training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia, where they learn to handle high-risk situations with specialized units and advanced equipment, including gas masks, helmets, and armored vehicles. ICE is also intensifying its security measures, deploying SWAT-style teams to execute warrants, and training officers on legal boundaries, such as warrant types and entry protocols. Amid rising tensions and violent incidents during arrests, ICE is adapting its tactics to ensure officer safety, emphasizing the militarization of its enforcement efforts and the ongoing debate over law enforcement's role in immigration policy. The Sydney Morning Herald tells the compelling story of Rishan, an Eritrean refugee who crossed the perilous English Channel in her youth, fleeing oppression and hardship in her homeland. Her journey was fraught with danger. She traveled through Sudan, Libya, and Europe, often living on the streets and hiding in trains, before finally arriving in the UK. Despite the trauma, Rishan's resilience shone through. She secured refugee status, completed university, and now works as a nurse, contributing to her new community. Her story underscores the human face behind the headlines about illegal crossings, highlighting the potential and determination of those seeking safety, and criticizing the negative stereotypes often portrayed by the media. Her experience exemplifies how support and perseverance can transform lives, challenging the narrative that asylum seekers are merely numbers or criminals. The South China Morning Post reports on a shocking case of exploitation and crime involving a 17-year-old girl in China who sold her boyfriend to a Myanmar scam ring for 100,000 yuan. Huang, the young man, was lured into a trap under the false promise of work in Myanmar, only to be subjected to forced labor in telecom fraud schemes, where he was beaten and mistreated, leading to deafness and severe weight loss. His family paid a ransom of 350,000 yuan to free him after nearly 4 months of captivity. The story reveals the dark underbelly of human trafficking, where love and desperation are exploited for criminal gains, and raises questions about the vulnerability of young people caught in complex international scams. It also exposes the alarming extent of such illicit activities, stirring widespread social concern and calls for stronger protective measures. According to the Associated Press, Mexico's legal system is embroiled in a high-profile case involving boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who faces trial over alleged cartel ties and arms trafficking. The investigation links him to organized crime, including the notorious Sinaloa cartel, amid broader efforts by Mexican authorities to combat drug trafficking and corruption. Chavez's arrest in Los Angeles for overstaying his visa and providing false information has intensified scrutiny, especially as he awaits trial outside detention. The case is emblematic of Mexico's ongoing struggle with organized crime's infiltration into various sectors, including sports and entertainment, and reflects the political pressure to hold high-profile figures accountable. It also sheds light on Chavez's troubled past, marked by addiction and legal issues, highlighting the complex intersection of crime, celebrity, and justice in Mexico's fight against organized crime. The Independent vividly illustrates the controversial situation surrounding Florida's Alligator Alcatraz, a massive immigrant detention center that could be shut down this fall due to a wave of legal challenges. Built hastily in the Everglades, the facility has sparked outrage for its inhumane conditions. Detainees are confined in cages, enduring sweltering heat, pests, and ration meals, while federal lawsuits accuse it of denying legal counsel and subjecting detainees to overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and excessive force. Environmental concerns also loom large, with a court injunction citing habitat destruction and threats to endangered species, emphasizing the facility's environmental and humanitarian toll. Despite the injunction and public outcry, Florida officials, under Governor Ron DeSantis, remain defiant, planning to replace the shuttered site with new detention centers, including a second facility dubbed Deportation Depot, aiming to process and deport immigrants swiftly, reflecting the state's unwavering stance on aggressive immigration enforcement. The Toronto Star reports on a tragic case where the BC Court of Appeal overturned a lenient sentence given to Jae-Won Lee, an Australian-born permanent resident who violently stabbed a man in Surrey, British Columbia. The lower court judge had imposed a conditional sentence of 2 years less a day, citing concerns over Lee's potential deportation and his lack of ties to Australia, which the appellate court found to be an improper consideration. The appellate judges emphasized that the severity of Lee's unprovoked attack, which required extensive medical treatment, warranted a much harsher sentence, 42 months in prison, highlighting the importance of proportional punishment and community safety over immigration consequences. This decision underscores the legal principle that sentencing should focus on the gravity of the offense, not collateral immigration risks, especially when public safety is at stake, and reflects ongoing debates about balancing justice with immigration policies. Meanwhile, the Canadian press details the broader legal landscape in Canada regarding immigration and criminal justice, exemplified by the case of Jae-Won Lee. The appellate ruling clarifies that courts must not let the threat of deportation influence the severity of sentencing for violent crimes. The case underscores the tension between immigration enforcement and criminal justice, illustrating how courts are increasingly scrutinizing the fairness of sentences that are influenced by potential immigration consequences. The decision highlights the importance of maintaining proportionality in sentencing, ensuring that justice is served based on the offense's severity rather than collateral factors like deportation risks. This case exemplifies the ongoing challenge of balancing immigration policies with the need for fair and effective criminal justice systems. The Sydney Morning Herald vividly portrays the grim reality faced by migrant workers in Australia, highlighting the brutal conditions and exploitation they endure. In Queensland, workers are subjected to inhumane treatment, with reports of dehydration, overwork, and even death, all under the watchful eye of employers who enforce punishing labor practices through surveillance and intimidation. The report reveals a disturbing pattern of deception, wage theft, and coercion, especially among women, who often resort to abortions or coerced marriages to maintain their visas, trapping them in a cycle of vulnerability and abuse. Labor hire firms like Madak and McChrystal Farms are scrutinized for illegal deductions and inflated fees, exposing systemic issues that allow such exploitation to persist despite investigations and legal actions. The Sydney Morning Herald also sheds light on the alarming rise of human rights violations, including forced marriages and the removal of children from migrant families. Witnesses recount harrowing stories of women coerced into marriage under employer pressure, and a woman who, after becoming pregnant, was forced to leave her job, resulting in her baby being taken into state care. The report emphasizes that the Australian government's efforts to combat slavery and exploitation are insufficient, with penalties deemed too weak to deter unscrupulous employers. Advocates call for stronger protections, easier employer switching, and comprehensive reforms to address the deeply entrenched vulnerabilities faced by migrant workers, especially within schemes like PALM, which sees many workers leaving due to exploitation and poor working conditions. The London-based The Times reports on Nigel Farage's audacious plans to emulate Australia's hardline immigration policies in the UK, proposing mass deportations and the construction of detention centres on Ascension Island to deter asylum seekers crossing the English Channel. Farage's rhetoric echoes Australia's controversial approach under Tony Abbott, advocating for the detention of asylum seekers and the use of financial incentives for voluntary repatriation. His proposals, though criticized for their harshness and logistical impracticality, reflect a rising tide of anti-immigration sentiment in Britain, with Farage leveraging populist policies to gain political momentum. Meanwhile, the UK's ongoing struggles with increasing asylum applications and political debates over border security mirror Australia's own contentious immigration landscape, highlighting the global challenge of balancing national security with human rights considerations. The Associated Press reports that European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde highlighted the positive impact of increased immigration on Europe's post-pandemic economic recovery during a speech at the Jackson Hole Symposium. She explained that a surge in foreign-born workers, who now constitute just 9% of the EU labor force but have driven half of its growth in recent years, played a crucial role in sustaining economic activity and reducing inflation without triggering a recession. Countries like Germany and Spain experienced significant growth thanks to the contribution of foreign labor, which helped meet rising demand and expand output. Lagarde pointed out that this influx, combined with factors such as declining inflation-adjusted wages, increased worker retention by companies, and more elderly individuals entering the workforce, contributed to steady growth despite rising interest rates. While historically higher borrowing costs tend to slow economies, Europe's experience defied this pattern, partly due to immigration and demographic shifts. She also noted that similar trends are emerging in Japan, where foreign workers, though only 3% of the workforce, have accounted for half of recent employment growth, underscoring the global relevance of immigration in bolstering labor markets amid aging populations. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.